All right, let's talk about where this goes next because we're now done with Unit 2. So where do we pick up in Unit 3? Well, we're still going to look at some derivative rules. We're going to look at a couple more complex issues. Unit 3, in terms of the quantity of lessons, is the shortest unit in all of calculus. But in terms of the quality of lessons, it maybe comes out to be one of our most important units because we learn a couple of really, really important topics. And it's going to start with this idea. Let's consider a function. Let's take a look at f of x equals sine squared of x. And just kind of as a note, we alluded to this a couple of times in our derivative proofs through this lesson. Sine squared of x literally means the quantity sine of x, all of that squared. And so the question is how do we find f prime of x? And some of you may already be looking at a way to do it, and in fact you could for this particular function, but I really want to know, how do we find f prime of x without maybe doing what was your first instinct for this function, and that's to rewrite f of x as equaling sine of x times sine of x. You could do that for this function. That's what sine squared of x means. That's a product of two functions we know the derivative of. You could rewrite f of x as this and use the product rule. So it actually is a derivative that you could take right now. The reason why we want to maybe move away from doing this is because what if I wanted to know sine cubed of x or sine to the 7th of x? We don't really want to be writing that out that many times. In fact, sine squared of x is what we would call a composition of functions. It's the sine of x function, but the function that's acting on it is something squared or x squared. And so we're going to start looking at this idea of the composition of functions. And that's actually how we begin Unit 3. So we'll begin Unit 3 with how to take the derivative of a composition of functions. And we're going to learn a very special rule, in fact, a very famous calculus rule that will allow us to do that. And that's how we'll begin Unit 3 with probably the most important lesson that we've covered so far.